there is never going to be the perfect moment to get into fitness. Like life is never going to get less busy. And I think that making an investment in yourself and in your health is like the single best thing you can do for yourself. And when you help someone with fitness, it will never just be workouts and nutrition. It can't be. It goes so much deeper than that.
On the 73rd episode of Passion in Progress, fitness influencer Patrick Lyons. Patrick is a lot of things. He's a fitness YouTuber and Instagrammer. He's a Ninja Warrior. He's a TEDx speaker. He currently works for Microsoft. And on top of all of that, he's an entrepreneur as well with his Lion Shred program. I hope you guys are strapped in for an amazing episode because Patrick is a very well-spoken, inspiring individual. And just a quick word about the sponsor of this episode, which would be me and my preset pack for those of you that are video editors. I just released my Premiere Pro smooth animations to get titles, objects, or any kind of asset on and off the screen in a smooth, professional manner. You can check that out in the description below. But without further ado, let's get into this amazing conversation with fitness influencer Patrick Lyons. What is up, Mersation? Javier Mercedes here for yet again another Passion in Progress show where we talk to inspiring individuals and hopefully through hearing their stories, you too are motivated to go out and pursue your passions. And on today's show, we are here with the one, the only Patrick Lyons. How's it going, man?
It's going well. I'm happy to be here.
If you were to peruse any of Patrick's content, you would definitely find a very swole individual. Do you want to start with where you started from and where you're at today? Because I know there is so much that goes into your story and how you've evolved to the person that you are today.
Yeah. I wanted to start with fitness because it genuinely has shaped everything about me and everything that I do today in terms of passions. It has definitely had an influence, even if it's not a fitness related thing. Basically, at the age of 10, I started having body image issues. It was like I would look at myself in the mirror and I didn't like what I saw. And I don't think that's something that any 10-year-old should or ever, should feel. Like that's just not a normal thing. But I definitely did feel that. It was like I looked in the mirror, I felt weak, I felt skinny. And it's very normal for a 10-year-old to be skinny and to not really have much strength development because you're 10 years old. It's just like, there shouldn't be an expectation of that. But from a young age, I think I definitely just had a misguided perception of reality. It's like you see these images of people either on magazine covers or in movies or something, and at least subconsciously you associate like, I should be this way or something like that. And I think that's what happened one way or another. So at the age of 10, I already kind of started taking action to do something about that. I didn't want to be unconfident in myself, so I started working out. It was kind of like the combination of the body image issues, plus I saw the movie Batman Begins. You put those two together and I started doing push-ups because Batman does push-ups. And so I started doing that. And then I said like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like I can do more push-ups than I did yesterday, the day before, whatever. And so I started doing that. Then I looked into like push-up and bodyweight workouts online. I found a guy named Master Ken Weichert, who's an Army certified national fitness trainer. I learned push-up variations from him. Then I got like the perfect push-up device, all sorts of push-up things. It was all that I knew that there was in the fitness world. I found like 5-pound or 10-pound dumbbells in my house. And I thought that if I just held them out from my sides, that would do something. And I literally would time it to be like 3-4 minutes of just holding them. And I'd like watch Dragon Tales or whatever 10-year-old show you watch. Yeah, like that was, that's what I did.
Side note, love Dragon Tales.
Yeah, great show.
PBS.
So that was like the very beginning stages. And I literally did hundreds, if not thousands of push-ups and sit-ups over the course of ages 10 to 15 because I had no other background. That was all I knew. And so I think it was either 2005 or 2006, I created what I called the 21st of May workout, named after the date that it was created on. And what that looked like was I did 3 push-up variations. I think they all started at like 20 reps and I did like 50 sit-ups. And it was like every single day I would like every week I would add to the push-ups, every day I would add to the sit-ups. And I just did that for, I think like a year or something, to the point where I was doing like hundreds and hundreds of sit-ups in a single day and at least 100 plus push-ups. And I'm like 15 and I don't have any other background in fitness. This is just what made sense to me. And then high school comes. I'm a nerd. I don't want to have a GPA hit from taking an athletic class where you don't get bonus points from an AP class. So I did summer school PE because it has no effect on your GPA. But for some reason, at summer school PE, with like pretty much the least in shape people, myself included, they had us do P90X. which is
really?
Yeah, which is so brutal.
Yeah.
Like, why would you give me that when I'm not? It killed me. I couldn't make it through like 5 minutes without being
Yeah, because it's P90X.
Yeah, like it's insane. And so I did that, but that was one of the distinct shifts in my life that I can like point toward, because I did those 5 minutes and I couldn't do any more, and that frustrated me. I was like, I want to get to the point where my body is capable of not only like finishing the workout, but being fine from finishing it, like being able to do more. And so that was like the trigger point that I needed that switched everything. And so I did P90X all the way through starting then. And I did 90 days straight through, got in the best shape of my life, but knew nothing about nutrition. So I stayed the exact same size.
Yeah.
So I just looked like really shredded as like a 15-year-old. Then you continue on for the next 4 years. I was very goal oriented. Like I mentioned, I was like a nerdy kid. So like I had ambitions in the academic world. I'd now done P90X, but the problem is I was so goal oriented that it was like, once I finished P90X, I was like, what's next? And I didn't have an answer to that. So I stopped working out for a year. And then that happened again. P90X2 came out, stopped working out for a year. P90X3, stopped working out. And I just kept doing that. Finally, once I got to college, I'm setting this up as if this is the moment of success, but it's not. I get to college having done P90X3 and thinking like, okay, I can finally continue working out. The problem now is I'm living in a college dorm room. I have like no space to work out in. So P90X is kind of out because you have to do that pretty much like at home. It's a home video series. So then I go to the gym, and this sets up a whole new problem because now I feel lost and kind of alone and not like I belong because I don't know how to use a gym. And I'm still fairly skinny, so I feel small. Maybe I wasn't skinny, but I felt small because the issues from when I was a kid. So when I try to go to the gym, I don't know how many sets to do. I don't know how many reps to do. I don't know how to use machines. I don't know much of anything about how to use a gym. I just knew how to do a workout program at home with the person right in front of me. So you combine that with the first semester of college, and I stopped working out, and I got in like the worst shape that I'd ever been in. And granted, it wasn't terrible by any means, but it's like when you go from fitness every day to no fitness for 6 months, it's a big difference. Mm-hmm. So then the final restarting point of my entire fitness journey was March 2nd, 2015. And that was the day that I started doing a weightlifting program in the gym for the first time, learned how to do all the exercises, finally started building my confidence both in the way I looked and felt and my confidence with using machines in a gym, using machines, dumbbells, barbells, everything. So since that date, aside from small periods of injury where I was mandated not to, I've worked out at least 5 days a week, every single week for the last 4 years and 7 months.
Dare I say, you've been shredding.
Yeah.
A little nod to your program.
Yes.
Yeah. So in diving into your content, one thing is you write a lot. Yes. On your Instagram posts. It's like novels underneath. Yeah. You post a lot. So in preparing for this interview, you can get a lot of inspiration from just reading through not only your copy that you put underneath your Instagram posts, but also hearing from the other people that are commenting on your posts as well. And on top of that, you loop in the idea of watching your YouTube videos and a whole encompassing 360 view of your presence online and things like that. Do you want to get into how this led into Ninja Warrior and how that ties into, I guess, setting goals for yourself to accomplish things?
Yeah. I guess the first thing I want to address is the long captions thing, because I do think it's like an interesting point. There aren't many people, I literally don't know of anyone else who does Instagram the way that I do it. It's very specific, it's very intentional, it's unique, and that's all, again, intentional. I max out the caption limit pretty much every single time. What's the caption limit? I don't know.
You just max it out?
I write until it doesn't let me anymore, and then I have to go back and edit it so that it'll let me finish it. Like, that's every single time.
Wow.
And that is almost a point of frustration. I wish the cap was longer because I could definitely write more. But it's probably good to make it at least a little bit consolidated. But the reason I do that is because my background is in storytelling and acting and speech and debate. So like I have a performative nature to me. I have like a brain that is geared toward like writing out a speech. Mm-hmm. It's like that's how I tell stories and messages. And what I realized is that I could merge my fitness brand with my background to create kind of like a cohesive thing that just was a reflection of who I am. And not only that, it's now like I get to add value to someone's life every single day if they so choose. Like if they read a post of mine, I want them to walk away with either knowing something, being entertained, or being inspired every single time. And that's the reason that I write a novel. It's like I know that probably 80+% don't read it, and that's okay with me because I I'm okay with someone just appreciating a picture. But for the people, the 20%, whatever, that choose like, you know what, I'm going to read everything Patrick says, they're going to gain something from it without ever paying me anything. And that's kind of my goal.
Do you post every day?
Every single day.
And then how do you approach the photo side of it? Do you go on long photo shoots and then just disperse that out across, like you already have, all right, I'm going to be using X amount of photos throughout this time period, or how does that look?
Basically, I've done enough photo shoots that I have a backlog of literally hundreds of images from which to choose from.
Okay.
And it's not like I say like, November 2nd of this year, I'm posting this picture with this caption. It's like I choose the photo each day and I write the caption each day. It's not necessarily the most efficient way to do it, and I may change that eventually. But yeah, it's literally like I'll be thinking of what I want my story to be, what I want my caption to be. I might like reference my Instagram to see like what I've been posting lately and what I can do maybe differently to add different types of content. Then that allows me to choose the right picture, and then I go to writing. So,
and with that, do you have a certain aesthetic that you want your Instagram to have, or is there like some random picture that you might find and you're like, nope, I like this. I want to tell this story with this.
It's a mix of both. Sometimes there are those random moments where it's just like, this makes sense to me right now. But I do also have this thing where
it might mess up your grid, man.
Yeah. It's so I don't necessarily care as much about like the quote unquote aesthetic of the grid, but it's more so like with a frequency of types of posts within the grid.
Okay.
So like I want videos to be ideally every third to fourth post. So that way I'm at least sharing video content frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want a transformation picture like every fourth post or so. And that has challenged me to find new ways of showcasing transformation. Because it used to be that I thought, oh, I can only post a transformation picture once I've completed like a 90-day program. And I don't think that way anymore, because I think transformation happens in a myriad of ways and a myriad of time frames. And I use my Instagram to show that. And then everything in between is usually just like a really high quality picture with hopefully like a motivational, educational caption attached.
Can you talk about that at the beginning? Because I'm actually really intrigued by that. And I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. Even if it's not transformation, it could be some sort of subject that people that want to grow their Instagrams and create content on a more consistent basis, but they're facing the issue of, well, I already posted about this one subject. How do you approach each time, or how was it in the beginning compared to where you're at today?
So when I was at the beginning, I had a lot of self-doubt, and that was driven by me thinking about what I thought others thought about me. I actually heard Jay Shetty say this recently. Do you know who Jay Shetty is?
Yeah. I saw that you had yours. For the audience that doesn't know, can you explain who it is? But I saw your post on him. I was like, oh, that's really cool that he got to meet him.
Yeah, Jay Shetty is like a very inspirational dude who was a monk and is now not a monk, but shares his insights that he learned then with the world in a very modern sense.
Not gonna lie, he's got some sweet eyes.
That's literally what someone at the event said. They got up to ask a question. They were like, before I say this question, I've listened to Gary Vee, and he was right. Your eyes are incredible.
Yeah, it's like, it's just, if you see a photo of him, you're like, what? This is a real human being?
Yeah.
Yeah, but continue your story.
So what I was saying is that he said that one of the biggest flaws with people is that they are thinking about what others think about them, and that they're thinking about how they're perceiving them. It's just like this loop of thought about what others think. And so then you start to base how you present yourself based on something that you don't factually know about what someone else thinks about you. So all of it's like externally facing in this weird conglomeration confusion thing, whereas it should just be, who do I want to be? And that should be like the only question. Who do I want to be, and how do I want to present that? Not thinking about the perceptions of others. The reason I introduced this subject with all of that is because at the beginning of my fitness journey, I used to think that one, people were going to judge me for posting a transformation picture at all. It was like terrifying to me, like to post a shirtless picture, period. But then I was thinking, well, unless the transformation is like substantial and just so impressive, people are not going to think anything of it. They're going to judge me even more. They're not going to think that it's like I did anything. All these thoughts about, again, what others thought. Then I started thinking, okay, it's not about what others think. It's about what I believe can help others, what I believe can add value. And so that just started making me kind of introspect and reflect on my own life of, different things that happened throughout my transformation journey. And I think that if I share those little pieces, other people will see it as more relatable, because it's actually almost the least relatable when you share a 90-day transformation, because it's so stark of a difference sometimes that people are like, how do I get to that point? Like, that seems so far off in the future for me. And maybe it is, But you can, even with like an incredible transformation, you can break down what it took to get there. Like, it's not just a one and done thing. It's like, you didn't see the daily work that happened. I worked out, 5-6 days a week. I was tracking my calories on a daily basis. Not only that, the calories changed from month 2 to month 3 or something like that, that at least breaks it down into steps. So that's kind of where I've come from. It's like a point of empathy, of understanding that people that aren't already as dedicated to fitness as I am, which is like most people. And I'm not saying that in like an egotistical way. It's just like I'm reflecting on, or I'm self-aware enough to know like I'm a fitness coach and most people are not fitness coaches. So like they don't have a reason to like be all in on fitness the way I am. So when I come from that perspective, I'm looking at, okay, what could someone else benefit from my story that happened in the last week or the last month? Or what if I'm looking at a 10-year transformation? I'm like, what changed substantially from point A to point B? What was like the mental shift or the physical shift? So does that answer like how I'm approaching transformations?
If there's a frequent listener to this podcast, what you're bringing up, the whole empathy side of things, is there's a common theme that's kind of cool that it's transgressed through a couple different episodes, is that people are you're most relatable to people if you're maybe just a step ahead of them, and you can still teach, even though you might think, I think the term is imposter syndrome or something like that, where you have to be the upper echelon of whatever that is in order to think that you're an authority or somebody that knows something about whatever subject that you're talking about.
Right.
And the last couple guests, one was a email marketer and another one is like a serial entrepreneur. And he just broke it down into the same steps that you were talking about, where look, if I was in somebody else's shoes and they just wanted to know how to do X, Y, and Z, in this case, fitness, and if you're showcasing it that like, look, last week I was there, this week I'm here, it's so much more tangible of an idea than what you just also said, the whole 90-day transformation, which is interesting because I myself, I just did 75 Hard, Andy Frisella's. Have you heard of it?
It sounds really familiar.
It's a fitness and kind of mental discipline thing. So you drink a gallon of water a day. You read 10 pages of a self-development book. Each day you have to follow a strict meal, no cheat meals, or strict diet, no cheat meals, no alcohol. 2 workouts a day. One of the workouts has to be outside, and you have to take a progress picture every day. And what's interesting, and I'm just relating to everything that you're saying, is as I was going, I really wasn't like sharing my story with it, right? I just wanted to see, all right, how far can I go with this? It turns out I did the whole 75 days and everything, and the transformation was like amazing. But as I was going, it just started happening that like around the middle of the transformation, people just started asking questions like, wow, you're looking different. What did you do? And then at that point I was like, oh, well, I guess it'd be nice to just like document this just so I can have something to fall back on. I turned it all into like one encapsulating podcast episode. But I think in terms of what you're talking about, where you lead people through your whole journey every day, is so much more relatable as opposed to here's my stark difference after 75 days. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. Because for me, I used to be of the just like post a 90-day thing, and then I don't really know what else to post. It's just like I felt like that was the end all be all. And now it's like if I post a transformation, it's not a surprise to anyone anymore because they know I'm putting in the work daily. In addition to my posts, I post on my story every single day as well, multiple times, and I shoot for at least 2 posts showing my workout from that day. So it's like, again, if I post a transformation and anyone's been watching my story, they're like, this makes sense. He's been working out every day. He's been showing what he's eating. Like I document all of it. So there's no surprises, and it makes more sense to someone who's not already in the world of fitness.
Okay, so I want to take this interview and like breach all different spectrums of what you create, because you do a lot. And so we've started with fitness, and can you kind of curtail that into the other things that you're doing? Like say if somebody was to view your YouTube channel, what would they see there? Yeah.
So my YouTube channel is, I like to say it's pranks and fitness, and it's fitness pranks. Because when I created my YouTube channel from the onset, I knew that I wanted my first video to be my transformation story, like from beginning to present, because I felt like anyone coming across a fitness personality or influencer, whatever you want to call the word, they would want to know that they at least started somewhere other than where they are at now. So it's more relatable. Then from there, I didn't know at first what I wanted the rest of my content to be. And I worried about putting out strictly fitness content because in my mind, not everyone right now is ready to get into fitness. But I do think everyone wants to be entertained. So I was like, how do I do that? How do I entertain people? And so then pranks became the first thought, because I'd also met like a Instagram and YouTube prankster type person who was also interested in fitness. So I was like, okay, this is totally doable. And then I thought specifically, if I can weave fitness into the pranks, there's at least the subconscious or whatever connection between my entertaining content and like my business, my product. So for example, I'll like run into a library as Batman during finals weeks when there's like hundreds of people in the library, and I'll literally like do push-ups and push-up tricks and just really random stuff that you're not used to seeing, like someone in costume do fitness things at all. You're not used to seeing them in a library. There's a lot of things that are abnormal about it. But my goal with that kind of content is for the people involved in the video to enjoy the moment as much as I do. I love performing, so I'm going to enjoy it anyways, but I want to create an experience that's unique, that's weird, that's hopefully funny, things like that. So I'll have like the Batman videos. I've done the same concept with like T-Rex costumes, again, just like in the library doing push-ups and stuff. I've done a couple prank videos that are like genuine pranks. And what I mean by genuine is that the people don't know they're on camera. Like when I do a quote unquote prank, like the Batman thing, it's very obvious there's someone filming because there's like someone right there. I'm there. It doesn't make sense. There's this Batman in the library. People know. But there are some times where it's like, I will like walk up to a group and I'm like talking to them about whatever weird, strange thing. And like I have a guy that's like maybe 50 feet away who's filming, and the whole interaction happens. And then I walk away. You get the reaction, which is usually the best part, where they're just like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then I'll go back and reveal like it was a prank. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Are we going to be on YouTube? Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's fun. And then I do also have some fitness videos. So it's like I do have workouts on there, things like that. The way I like to think of it is like Instagram is genuinely everything about my life. YouTube is like a smaller subset. So it's mainly fitness and pranks and fitness pranks. And then I have a couple videos that's like day in life at UT Austin, day in life at Microsoft. But mainly those things.
Yeah, you had a past guest on one of your workout videos, Kelly G.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She was awesome. But after I saw that workout, you did. For those that are listening, he did a partner workout. I might do it with my wife after this.
Yeah,
but yeah, it looked pretty funny.
Yeah.
So there's YouTube, Instagram. Is there anything else that you're like content wise that you're doing?
I do post on LinkedIn sometimes, but YouTube and Instagram are by far my biggest ones. Facebook is a regurgitation of Instagram. Like I literally copy and paste everything over.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch base just because as a content creator, especially doing it as like a year now, it's more, I find that if you focus more in on one specific thing, you can be so much better at that one thing than trying to spread yourself thin on all that stuff. So I do a lot of the same thing where it's either regurgitated on all the different spaces.
I would say one other thing I'd say about that is that it's totally true that if you can at least focus in on one of them, you'll have the most success with it. And I say this because at the beginning of my YouTube journey, I was incredibly consistent. Like it was something like 50 videos in 52 weeks. Like almost every single week I put out a new video. And that was when my viewership was the most consistent. Even though my following was smaller, the ratio of like views to subscribers was like substantial. And then life got busy. I took like 2 months off. My viewership like cut in half. So it's like I had more subscribers and even fewer views because I was no longer consistent. And when you're just starting out on social media, and when I say starting out, it's a very loose term, it could still be like a year or two in, you're still smaller than the viral and massive people. Like if someone is a viewer of like Logan Paul, they're never going to forget the existence of Logan Paul because he has like 20 million followers. Yeah. But then if you compare that to me having within like the 10,000 plus range, 40,000, whatever, it's easier to forget. You're less memorable. And so you have to be consistent to hold people's attention. And so I think that comes with consistency.
How much would you say, because I love consistency, I love that. How much would you say consistency contributes to the quality of your content from where you started? Having a certain regimen in place to be like, I'm going to post every Wednesday. So for me personally, I have the podcast every Wednesday, and I can tell you right now that this podcast already sounds eons better than my first couple podcasts. Just because of flows and all that other stuff. But also by setting up a specific, I need to post every Wednesday a podcast. Within that constraint breeds creativity. So I'm able to, so let's say I didn't have a guest for the week. Then I'm able to, all right, what can I still do that provides value to people this Wednesday? And create the podcast. How would you say that relates to how you're doing your content?
I definitely think it's been pretty instrumental. It's
Mhm.
like before I gave myself a requirement of like posting on Instagram every day, there just wasn't as much drive or motivation. It was more so like I would just kind of be going through my day-to-day life, and then if something made sense to me to make a post out of, I would. And that's, to me, that's too loose because you don't have urgency. There's nothing driving you to like create. It's more so like create when it is convenient to, and it's not always going to be convenient. So it makes more sense to have like a schedule of some sort. And then in terms of that, it's kind of like the more and more that I've gotten into it, the more that I just want the content to be better. So like, for instance, pranks that I'll be putting out in the next, like, hopefully month are going to be like some of the highest quality pranks I've ever had, because I like was able to connect with someone who's way, way bigger than me. And I just asked him about like what microphone he uses. And so now I have like the highest quality prank microphone you can possibly use to where like...
That's such a niche genre. Like,
I know.
Like to ask other pranksters like what tech you're using.
I know.
Yeah.
But like it's the kind of thing where now I can have a mic on me. My cameraman can be 50 plus feet away and they can have earbuds in and hear our conversation. Like it's insane. And I just didn't have that before. And like that definitely takes things up a notch. Yeah. And then it's like the more that I put out content, the more I've met other creators, and the more creators you meet, the more you kind of thrive off of them. Maybe you collaborate, you partner together. So now I have people that have helped me film with like really, really high quality cameras. Everything kind of like feeds on itself. But if you never had the consistency, you might have never built those relationships and learned those things. And so I think it all ties together.
I think that's the most important thing you just said. I can personally attest to everything that you just said.
Yeah.
Case in point is next week, this will actually happen after. So when you're listening to this, it's already happened, but I'm going to VidSummit, which is like a lot of the, have you ever heard of it?
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
So in LA, VidSummit is hosted by Daryl Eves, and actually Mr. Beast just bought stake in it too.
Whoa.
But it's a lot of the it's all of the like top YouTubers go there to meet up, and it's just a big. It's not like VidCon. It's more there to talk shop and actually talk about YouTube's type stuff. So like to give you an example, Casey Neistat and Mr. Beast is one of the speakers there too, but like those kind of people.
Yeah.
And I went last year because I won a ticket, and I can tell you that the amount of people that I met and the networking that I got to do while I was there completely changed my whole trajectory as a content creator where I am today. And because of that, once you start putting out product and people can see that they can actually have an idea of who you are by the actual content that you've put out, then they can gauge like, oh, this is somebody that I want to do something with or not. I mean, probably the same that when I reached out to you, like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? And then it's like, okay, well, let me see what Javier's up to. And then you can see and be like, oh, that's something I'm into or not, you know?
Yeah.
With that being said, collaboration in general, how would, for other people that want to grow as a creator, because a lot of creators listen to this podcast, how would you go about reaching out to somebody to collaborate?
So I think the first and foremost thing is you need to like actually know something about the person. If you just think that like they're famous and cool, that's just not enough. Like if you are someone who has a large following, that's old news to you. Like you have accepted that as part of your like identity and what you do. It's like, yeah, I have a large following, whatever. That's just part of me. If someone reaches out to you and they're very specific and intentional. Maybe they say like, hey dude, I've been following you for like half a year now. And it just like, you've inspired me. I saw like the XYZ video or XYZ content. And it triggered this change in my life, whatever. Like if it's a specific thing, like they changed something about you, or you related to their content, or you've used something that they taught you to teach someone else, all are good things, because then they now feel like an emotional connection to what you've told them. And that gives you a much higher chance of collaboration. The best example that I can give is when I started my YouTube channel, I had a very small initial following of like 150 people because I used to do Facebook Live videos. I still do, but that was like used to be my only method of content creation. And I had a consistent viewership, and that was enough to like transfer them over to YouTube. But 150 is 150. It's not like super substantial, but it's something. What I'm getting at is I started my YouTube channel with this relatively small following, relatively small number of views on the first video, but I had met a fitness content creator, prankster guy named Connor Murphy. And I had met him on the UT campus and just like randomly ran into him. I took a picture with him that ended up in the video that he put out that week. And I didn't get his contact information or anything, but it was like we had that small initial connection to where when I started my YouTube channel, I genuinely had mirrored my first video around his first video. Like he had directly inspired me to do that without him telling me to. It was just like I watched, I liked, I made. And so I reached out to him with a link to the video, explained what I just told you, that like he inspired that first video, and it'd mean a lot if he checked it out. Not only did he watch it, he said like it really meant a lot to him to know that like he had inspired my action, and so he was like, we should get in a workout. So it wasn't even like me proposing it. He had seen the change that he'd made in my life and wanted to kind of give back even more. So we filmed a video on his channel, a workout, and that video now has like 4 million views on his channel. But literally in like the first day of that video being posted, I jumped from 100 to 600 followers, which is like insane.
That's really tough, especially in the beginning. For YouTube, it's so hard to get your first 100 subscribers.
Yeah, super hard. That is my advice with collaboration. Like you just have to have a genuine connection, or what incentive do they have to meet with you? Like they have busy lives. Everyone has busy lives. You have to justify a meeting.
Yeah. Pivoting. Can you talk about, so you did a TED Talk, and during your TED Talk, one of the things I loved is that you put up a list of things that, hey, I want to try these things. And then there's a list on that list, there was things that you were told no to, there was things that you were accepted to, and all that kind of stuff. What I love about that technique is that you're actually going out and you're doing things, and you're becoming a more cultivated person. Can you talk about why that is so important to actually go out and experience things, a whole plethora of passions in progress? Ooh. Plug.
Incredible. So the most important takeaway that I've had from that whole experience and that I continue to do today is that it took away the fear of failure, because previously I thought about rejection too much. It was like, I don't know if I want to try that. Like it might not work out. And that's just not the way that I think you should go about life. I think it should be more like try everything with being completely accepting in advance that anything could be a yes or no. Anything could go your way or not. And when I approached it with that way, got so many more successes out of it, because it's like now I had a larger pool of things with which I was putting myself into. You're going to get a larger pool of yeses out of it. Yes, you're also going to get a larger pool of no's out of it. But I guarantee you a lot of those yeses never would have come if it wasn't for those no's. So you put all of that together, and I just think it makes for like so much more of a fun and interesting life. And it's like, I don't know how many other 23-year-old people can say they've tried over 120 things. Maybe there are a lot out there. I don't know, but I do it. And I think it has changed my life substantially. Like the TED Talk thing is a very direct example. The TED Talk that I got was either the third or the fourth one that I'd applied to. Like that wasn't my first try getting a TED Talk. If I hadn't tried those first 3, I probably wouldn't have gotten the one that actually worked out.
The more and more you do, the more and more you learn about life, and the more you can become a better cultivated person. In preparing for your TED Talk, how was it? How much time did you have? I think you're my first guest that's had a TED Talk. So what was that process like?
Yeah, so I believe it was an audition in either November or December, and the actual performance was April 6th. So the entire timeline of the process was like 5-ish months. And the way that goes is you submit an application, you hear back about whether you're accepted for an in-person audition. The in-person audition has to be a nearly complete version of your proposed speech. The longest time limit you can possibly have for a TEDx talk is 18 minutes. This conference ended up making that a 13-minute requirement rather than 18, just to make it a little bit shorter. And then the audition was 8 minutes. So you had to give, maybe it was 10-minute, a 10-minute edition.
It was a small version. It was small.
Yeah. You get it. But it didn't have to be memorized, but it needed to be mostly memorized. So like I had note cards. I did the whole thing in front of, I think it was like 40 different people. And they're all like voting on who are the best speakers of the group. And it's a wide variety of people. Like there were undergrads, there were grad students, masters, PhDs, insanely intelligent people. Like it was wild to be like even slightly a part of that group. And then I think I heard back maybe a week later that I'd gotten it. And at that point, I think it was 3.5 full months before the actual thing. So if I had been in Austin that entire time, I would have been going to like bi-weekly rehearsals to like give them the speech basically.
Wow. I did not know that that's how much goes into that. That's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if every convention's that way, but that's just the way this one was.
I'm assuming like I can't imagine what goes on for the bigger ones. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is you say that, but I don't know if it's the case. And here's why I say this, because have you seen the Procrastination TED Talk?
Yeah, and I was going to, can you, just to give the listener, I've seen it and I know what you're about to bring up, but go ahead and talk about it.
It's just like a guy who breaks down like what goes on in your mind and everything when you're procrastinating. And the example he gives within the speech is that he wrote that speech to 72 hours prior.
Yeah.
So it's like he couldn't have gone to rehearsals for months.
Yeah. Other than if he was just replicating the speech in a way that was leading up to the rehearsal. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible.
But it was a great speech.
Yeah, it's incredible. But since I wasn't in Austin, what it was for me was just like the same concept, but from afar. So like I had to make the final edition of the speech and then send it to them, get edits from them. I made all the edits and I made changes, whatever. We had like a phone call about it. And then once it got to, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks away from the conference, they said like, we have to have like a final run through with you where it's fully memorized, but I couldn't be there in person. So we did it over like a Skype video call or something like that. They were all cool with it. It was under the time limit, so we were good to go. But I still had a memory flub during that one. So if I have a memory flub, I'm not ready. And so that was like literally 8 or 9 days before my my actual talk. So in those 8 or 9 days, I ran the speech like more than 20 times. My goal was to do 1 time a day, and I did at least 2 times a day. Just because I was like, I want to be as prepared as possible. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I want to make the best speech I've ever given. And so I got to the point where it was just like, there was no chance of me having any memory flubs, and I was super confident with it. I knew exactly what emotion I wanted behind which sentence, behind which paragraph, all of it. Yeah, so I gave the best performance I've ever given that day, and it was super fulfilling.
I love that.
Yeah.
I just love the case in point of you set out to do this thing, and then I love hearing it in person, just hearing what you did to get to that point of actually giving the speech, because I didn't know that you had to do so much in preparation. I didn't know there was is there like a whole panel of people that you're working with that like, is their only job just to facilitate the TED Talks? Essentially. But
but it's not, okay, so you say only job, but it's more so like they are an independent organization that has gotten permission from TED to run this conference. So it's not like their full-time job.
Okay.
Like these were students in this case who this was like the organization that they chose to be a part of.
Okay.
But those people, yes, their job is to facilitate the speakers, make sure they're all ready to go and prepped and all that.
Man, that's why when you watch a TED Talk of any sort, it's so, every single second is such a pristine amount of information and value given to a listener.
Yeah.
Do you still have it somewhat memorized, or
little bits of it?
I just love the part, and I might actually use this in the intro to the podcast of saying what you've had accomplished. I don't know if it was within a certain amount of time, but like given 600 speeches and like all this other stuff, and then you're like, this is the most humble sentence ever. But but it's just like talking about what you've accomplished so far to give credit to the rest of your speech.
Right.
And you just ripped it off so fast. It was like, oh man, this is awesome.
That took so much practice, because like I had 2 intentional speed sections of the speech. I just call it speed section because it's like talking as fast as I can. But it's like you have to take things to another level of memorization to get it to that, because it's no longer just knowing the words. It's knowing like how to move your mouth that quickly. Because it's like, I definitely did it over and over and over again where I would definitely like mix up words. Mm-hmm. And it's like I had to get to the point where like I was moving my mouth so much that it was like I could do it fast with big mouth movements. So then once I'm talking like a normal person, I can just like really ramble as fast as I possibly can. But like even then, when I just did that example, I didn't practice that, so it was like a little bit slurred. It's like, there's a whole thing to it. But yes, I loved giving that sentence.
Yeah, I could relate to it in terms of playing piano. One of the things with memorizing piano songs is you can fall into this rut of bad habits playing piano when you memorize a song, and then the way that your brain comprehends it is it just goes into autopilot. But you can't replicate playing a song in front of people. So in order to really, really prepare yourself, and I'm assuming this is somewhat the same for speeches, is you have to find those things where you just said like, I did it with a really big mouth. So for like piano, you have to sit there and then if you ever mess up on any part of the song, you like take a second, stop, and then as opposed to just replaying it, think to yourself, well then why did this happen? And don't try and go into autopilot of just going through the motions of playing it. You have to actually think about why you flubbed, and then after you go back and then fix it because you were actively thinking about it, it gives you another way to think about surpassing whatever that flub was, and it makes sure it doesn't happen again. But there's a whole bunch of other things there too, but it's to keep your brain from going on autopilot, because you can, I'm actually curious, did you think that you were a little over prepared and then that might have been a detriment to when you actually gave the speech, or you were just so prepared that you're like, I could do this in my sleep and that's okay?
So I think if you are at like an inexperienced point of public speaking, over preparation could be a real thing. Mm-hmm. The reason I preface it with that is because I think that once you are at a point where you can practice a speech to the point of poise and perfection in a way, then you can't be over prepared. Because the way that I prepare isn't just memorizing, it's memorizing the words and the tempo and the emotion and the cadence. Like there's so many things to it, to where it's like, even if there's an audience, I've practiced to know that at this moment, there's a pause. And it's like, that makes so much difference. And if you didn't practice it that way, it's definitely not going to happen that way in the moment.
I would, that's, in terms of piano, there's one thing to memorize the notes themselves, but then that's where the creativity comes. It's like, once you've actually memorized what notes happen in what tempo and timing, then you can bring in your creativity of like, is this a soft piano is what I was going to say, or forte, but soft or loud, or however that may be, or how you hit the piano in a certain way, how you're interacting with the piano can then breed so much more to the performance, which there's a lot of similarities there in speech. Pivoting. Let's go and talk about Ninja Warrior. Do you want to tell your story of like how you got into American Ninja Warrior and all that kind of stuff?
Basically, once I got to a point of confidence in my fitness journey, like I mentioned my whole thing earlier, after that March 2nd, 2015 date, after, multiple rounds of doing programs, I got to a point where I had a lot of strength in general. I had quite a bit of body weight strength, and I was sharing videos and pictures of my fitness journey online. And so the first kind of trigger was that my sister saw a video that I posted, and the video was of me doing 10 muscle ups for the first time. For viewers who don't know, a muscle up is like, imagine doing a pull up, but instead of just getting your chin above the bar, you then also push up. So you're completely over the bar. Your hips are touching the bar and your chest and head are over it. And it's kind of like a relatively advanced body weight movement. And it was like a very accomplishing feeling for me to be able to do 10, whatever. And so my sister comments on that and she was like, this is awesome. You should do American Ninja Warrior. And I was like, I'd love to, but like, I don't know how you do that. And so she just sent me the link to the application. I was like, oh, okay, it's that simple. So that was like the first thing, was just like, I kind of wanted to, it was just like a thing that seemed cool. My sister and others supported it. And then I also watched I watched the show when I was a kid. Like it was called Sasuke, or like Ninja Warrior back then. And I always thought at the time when I was a kid that it was cool, but I didn't comprehend like the strength that it took until I actually got into fitness. And I got to a point where I was like, I think I can actually do this. And so a friend of mine who was like in the RTF department at UT helped me film my audition video, because I knew nothing about filming back then, or I didn't even have a YouTube channel, anything like that. And so filmed that video, sent it in, and it was kind of like a mix of story and strength. So I was telling things about like my academic life and my interests and my passions and fitness. And then a couple weeks later, I got a call from the senior casting producer, and he told me that he really liked the video, and like that was super cool. But he said the problem was that there wasn't any obstacle footage, and I didn't know there was such a thing as obstacle gyms or ninja gyms. Mm-hmm. But they're a thing, and there's so much a thing now that if you're auditioning for the show and you don't have that in your video, you're probably not going to make it. Because I'm not kidding, 100,000 people applied the last 2 years, and they select 600 out of that. So it's less than 1%. If you don't have obstacle footage, you're not standing out. That's just the truth. So I had traveled to San Antonio, and I filmed at a ninja gym for the very first time in January of 2017. And it was one of like the coolest things ever. It was just like validating that I was actually able to do this stuff that I'd seen on TV for so long, because obstacle gyms are directly a reflection of the show, like the obstacles they have. So I filmed all that, sent it to the casting producer. He said it was great, but he doesn't get the final say. He sends it on to the executive producers who decide. So that first year, didn't make it. But I did get to be a course tester, which meant that I got to go to the course the day before they filmed for the TV show, and I tested obstacles. I was able to make it through one that a lot of people weren't. It was called, don't remember, TikTok. It was called the TikTok. And then I failed on another obstacle, and then I was able to do the salmon ladder after that. So I was able to do 2. I wasn't able to do 1. That was good enough for me. It was my first time ever on like the actual show stuff, but that like kicked me into another gear. And I was like, I really want to make this happen. And around that same time when I was like going to the Ninja Gym for the first time and like hoping I was going to make it, that's when I started my YouTube channel. And the reason I mention that here is because making it on Ninja Warrior is not just about being the strongest human or the leanest human or anything like that. You have to be able to tell stories through video. And so YouTube played a very direct role in that. Like I mentioned earlier, that first year was the most consistent I'd ever been with YouTube. So I was telling a story through video almost every single week of the year. And I was training to get in the best shape of my life for Ninja Warrior. You put those two together, by the time December of 2017 comes around, I know exactly what story to tell. I know exactly how to edit it, exactly how to film it. And I'm genuinely in the best shape of my life for that. And so that video was one of like the proudest videos I've ever made. It was like a solid 24 hours of editing that I put into it. And that's the one that made me on the show for season 10 in 2018.
And do you want to say what happened?
Yeah. So I always tell people, like, this is the exact wording I use every time people ask. It was the most larger than life experience I've ever had. Like, that is the easiest way to put it, best way to put it, because you go from training on obstacles in like normal sized gyms to like this massive several 100-foot long obstacle course with lights and cameras and an audience of 1,000 people in person, with like the people you've been watching TV just sitting there watching you. Like, there's so much to it that you've never been through. So even though I was genuinely in the best shape of my life at that time, up to that point, that isn't enough to prepare you for that moment, because there's the mental component of like self-doubt and like worry and fear and uncertainty. And so when I step up to the starting line to go, I'm like absolutely fired up. And it's like, as soon as like you hear the ding to go, it was like I kind of just got sucked into the moment in a good way at first, to where like all I could focus on was the obstacle. It didn't matter what everything else was going on. I get through the first obstacle, I get to the second, I'm celebrating, I'm pumped up. I like start the next obstacle, I make it through the first half of it, I walk my hands to the end of the bar. And this is where like the self-doubt kicks in. It's like I put so much pressure on myself on that moment, to where like all I could think about was like, I have to make it through this. I have to make it through this. And I'm like putting this pressure on myself. And then I'm starting to worry about like, oh crap, what if I don't make it through this? And all the while, the thing I have to do is to get my hands from this bar to the next one, which is like 1.5 feet in front of me. But in the moment, it feels like 5 feet in front of me. I don't think there's a chance I can make it. So I end up hanging from my hands for like 60 seconds. And by the time I actually propel myself to make the jump, my hands were so dead that I fell into the water. So
the way that he just described it, he makes it sound like it's from one bar to the next. But the thing is, that bar was also at an angle, and it was like it wasn't any small feat to get to the next bar.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you had me crying when I saw the video that you posted where you actually showed the whole run through. And then afterwards, you come on, you're like, you know, I accomplished what I wanted to do after like I got there, and like this next year I'm going to be putting everything into going again. But it was, again, another example of you set forth to do something, and hey, look at that.
Yeah.
There you are on television, or at least there in the flesh and doing it. And you said you were going to.
Yeah.
Love that, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah. And like, just like I say in the YouTube video I made, it was genuinely like, I was so proud of myself because I was there. I'm like tearing up just thinking about this all over again. But it's like
me tearing up, man.
It's just like, it was like I'd put so much of my life into making that happen, and the fact that I made it there at all was so fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which relates back to all those things of trying, and you could get your no's, but then you're probably going to get a much better ratio of yeses, or your chance of getting a yes when you really, really want whatever that thing is probably so much higher.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about how that relates to teaching other people fitness?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you segued that there, because finishing Ninja Warrior was the thing that led me to create my fitness program, the Lion Shred. That's the way that I market it, which is completely true. Basically, the Lion Shred was the program I used to get in the best shape of my life for Ninja Warrior. I keep saying best shape of my life because like I genuinely have had so many points in my journey where I achieved like the new best me. And it was the kind of thing where I was already fitness coaching people as of June of 2015, but through another company. And it was just like, I didn't necessarily agree with the direction that company was going in. So I had already started like researching other avenues, trying to figure out like, what's the best way to teach people? What's the best way to train? How do I balance fitness and nutrition? Do that with a college lifestyle? All these questions were in my mind and I was researching them actively. I was experimenting in my own life. I was being my own test subject and I was seeing what results I could get and I was sharing them. But the whole time it was just like, there was again, that like self-doubt piece of like, when is it okay? Or when am I going to be ready to put a fitness program out there into the world? And Ninja Warrior was that trigger I needed. It was like, I literally am in the best shape of my life. I keep saying that and it sounds like it's getting annoying, even me saying it, but it's like, I was like, why can't I do this? Why isn't this the right time? And there was no reason why it wasn't the right time. So I just decided to go for it. I was like, I'm going to put out the program. And it literally came out like 3 or 4 days after I got back from Ninja Warrior. So March 31st, 2018 was the day I launched it. And I started working with my first clients the next day. So April 1st, 2018 was first clients. So it's like been about a year and a half now that I've had this program. And it was super validating that worked because there was no guarantee that it was going to work. In my mind, it was like, it made sense. Like, I don't think there are other Ninja Warriors marketing a program as something to get in the best shape of your life, like I had done for TV or whatever. And so I used that as the marketing point. But throughout the next year and a half leading up to the present, there's been so many other things that I've used for inspiration to market the program truthfully as just like something that is completely customizable to any person, to any lifestyle at almost any age, with a variety of dietary restrictions and requirements, with a variety of available equipment, with injuries factored in so that we don't, further exacerbate an injury and maybe even help them, all sorts of things. And that is what I think makes the program so unique, is that it is customizable. It's not just like a cookie cutter standalone program where you're not going to have anyone helping you. Like, it's not just a program. It is, you get me as your coach. I'm helping you with nutrition throughout the whole time. I'm helping you with workouts. I plug you into a fitness community of people like you all over the world. And so just in that year and a half, I've worked with over 400 people across 13 countries on 6 continents. Boom. And that's like such a wild thing for me to be able to say, because this started from nothing. And if I'd never taken the chance on myself to do what I'd wanted to do, those numbers would all still be 0. 0 countries, 0 people, 0 continents, whatever. But yeah, it's been the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. Creating that program, nothing compares. I remember a conversation I had with a female entrepreneur at UT who had been very inspiring to me because I'd been watching her and her journey, and it had just been so cool to me. But I could never fully relate because I was like, how did you do this? Like, how did you find the courage to be an entrepreneur? How did you find the courage to pursue what you wanted to do? And how are you doing this while you're a full-time college student in mechanical engineering? Like, all these questions. And I got all this advice from her, but it still just, it didn't seem like it was possible until I did it. And then as soon as I did, it all clicked, and it made me realize like how much more meaningful it is to pursue something that you are personally passionate about that you can use to benefit the world.
Love that. Could you give a example of somebody that you've helped out, or some sort of story that would also relate to taking somebody through your program?
Yeah. So I'll talk about one. He just finished the program less than a month ago on September 17th, 2019.
That was very specific.
Yeah.
I love this.
It's very specific because he was one of the people who decided to put the dates on his transformation picture, so like I can see those dates on there.
Okay. I was like, wow, he's going into real detail.
But it's wild. Like, this is a guy that I've known for like 7 years, but only very loosely. Like, we met on a cruise, which is like a week of my life, and then I never saw him again. I've still never seen him again in person. But he was always into fitness, but then when college happened and when full-time job happened, he lost his dedication and drive to a healthy lifestyle. And so the funny thing is, he had reached out to me like over a year ago to start the program, but he never did. And then he reached out again in May of 2019 and was like, I know I reached out to you forever ago and I just wasn't ready to commit. I wasn't ready, but I'm ready now. I'm moving into a new job. This is getting a little bit into like a little bit of the deep emotional stuff for him, but he shared this publicly. He was like in a very kind of like depressing state of his life. Like he didn't feel good in a lot of ways, not just with his body, but mentally he was going through some things. He was starting up a new job, so there's a lot of like uncertainty and scariness to it. And the fact that that was the moment in his life where he chose to make a change, I think is really telling. And it's that like there is never going to be the perfect moment to get into fitness. Like life is never going to get less busy. And I think that making an investment in yourself and in your health is like the single best thing you can do for yourself. And I think that's exactly why that was the time in his life he chose to make the change. Because he had every excuse not to do this, but he chose that moment to do it anyways. And I think that was really cool. And so he took those next 90 days and he had actually had years of fitness experience beforehand. So like he knew his stuff, but he was constantly messaging me saying like, dude, I've never done this in the way that you're having me do it. And it makes so much sense. Like this is so different than I'm used to and it's working and I'm feeling it. And then as he got into like the 1 and 2 month marks, he's like, dude, I'm noticing like incredible changes. Other people are noticing changes. Like I feel better. The best part of all of this is like, I don't have like that mental state I had 2 months ago. Like I feel like a new person. He was saying like the words like, you changed my life. And like, for me, that's super empowering. But more than that, it's like, it just made me so proud of him and makes me so proud of every client who goes through that. And so then by the time he gets finished with those 90 days, this is his words, not mine. He looked and felt better than he ever has. He's like stronger in a lot of ways than he was before. I say that because he used to do kind of like powerlifting style stuff. And it's just a different world now. But it's so cool seeing that because this was a guy who was a friend of mine for sure, but I got to help him on a much deeper level than I think just like a common friendship. Because when you help someone with fitness, it will never just be workouts and nutrition. It can't be. It goes so much deeper than that. So it's getting into mindset thing. It's getting into lifestyle things, how to fit workouts into your schedule, what to do when you get sick, what to do when you can't fit in a workout on the day you thought you were supposed to. What do you do if you have a cheat meal? Like all these things that like, it's so easy to get bogged down in the little stuff, but I'm there to help you see the big picture and help you understand that like life is never going to be smooth sailing. And like, you have to learn to roll with the punches and how to deal with those so that you don't get off track just because 1 or 2 bad things happened. So by the time he gets to the end of the 90 days, he's making all these transformation pictures. He's super proud of himself, as he should be. And not only that, this changed him so much that he started his own YouTube channel and is starting to make his own fitness content to help other people. Like getting emotional because it's just so cool. But he's had people like reaching out to him who are getting help from him now. It's just like he was in such a different spot 3 months ago.
I think that's so full circle from when you reached out to Connor. I always wonder about the snowball effect of one's person's actions, and just you in and of yourself, 400 people that you've affected personally, you know? And then that's just one story. Who knows where that dovetail will lead to 10 years down the line. Yeah. Want to cuss and just be like, fucking awesome. But that's so cool to hear. And I also like that example too, because it speaks about somebody that has already done fitness and they were still able to really progress themselves by using the Lion Shred program. Right.
Yeah. So it's been pretty cool.
The one thing I was going to ask, just because you talk about it a little bit in your content, is that it's not all just fitness. Like, you got a degree and all this other stuff. So do you want to talk about how you got into Microsoft a little bit? Because I think what's also relatable to the audience is that you're pursuing your own passion, but you also have a full-time job, right? And you found something that you love. I'm assuming that you love doing for another company, you know? So can you talk a little bit from it? At that angle.
Yeah. So like I've mentioned earlier, I was like a nerdy kid in high school. I continued to be nerdy at heart in college, majored in mechanical engineering. And I did that because even though like I did already have these inclinations of fitness, I wanted to do something in college that would allow me to learn something that I would never learn if I wasn't going to college for it.
Yeah,
Like I would never do engineering. I would never learn engineering if I wasn't almost like forced to through the way of classes. All of like the drive that I've always had in life stayed with me. And I say it that way because it was like from my freshman year, I was like, I have to get an internship. I want to be learning outside of the classroom. I want to build my resume. I want to become like the best person in this realm of my life that I can be. So I did an internship at a small engineering company called Hennessy Engineering after freshman year, and then sophomore year I did AT&T at their national headquarters in Dallas. The next year I did Boeing in Seattle, and at that summer I met people who were interning at Microsoft in Seattle. And Microsoft had never really been on my radar because it was always just like it seemed too unrealistic. It just seemed too far out there. But I started hearing these other interns tell me about their experiences, and I was just like, that sounds like the coolest place ever. And so I just went for it. I made sure to be at like every single Microsoft event I could possibly be at whenever it was around like the UT area. The first one, it didn't go so well because they were only looking for software people and I'm hardware, so there was no chance. The next one, it was only business, so still not really up my alley, but I talked to one of the guys and I explained my situation with like me having background in like engineering and supply chain. Could you give my resume to someone who can like fit me in or something? And that worked. And so I got my first interview a week later. A month later, I was flown up to Seattle for my final round interview, which is like 4-hour interviews back to back to back to back.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then I literally heard back the next day that I got it because I had to, because I had an offer from another company that was due that day. So Microsoft's like willing to work with you. So that got me the internship. I went through the internship. It was the best internship I've ever had out of the 4 or 5 that I've done. And more than anything, I aligned with the company and the mission and the values because they're about empowering people and empowering the world through their products and devices and software and all of it. And that was just so cool to be around because everyone is like growth mindset oriented, meaning that they're willing to challenge the status quo. And they're just super smart and unique people that have good intentions and create amazing products. So now in my full-time role, my internship was supply chain. My full-time role is a little bit different on the mechanical sourcing end, which means that I am working with our suppliers in China to help make parts for our physical hardware devices. So it's like a mix of business and engineering, which is like the perfect fit for me because I do genuinely love business. Like obviously I own my own business and then I do Microsoft stuff. But you mentioned about it being like relatable to others. And I do think, most people do end up working for a company like I am right now. And I think that that's great and that's awesome. And I like it for what it is, but I also like it for the fact that I can balance it with fitness to, again, empathize with others. Because if I had never taken a 40-hour a week job or however many a week job, I wouldn't have the ability to understand what it is that others go through when they're trying to balance working out and nutrition and everything with that job. But for me, I've tried to take it to another level because it's like I'm doing my own business and a corporate job and working out. So I'm developing even more empathy just because like I want to understand that the struggles that others have. And that's worked really well for me. My first month at Microsoft was the most successful month of my own business as well, because I think that it like kind of all came full circle together to where people who looked like me in terms of what we're interested in, what we do with our lives, could align with me even more. And that made them comfortable with taking on me as their coach. So that's been really cool. And yeah, Microsoft's an amazing place.
That's awesome to hear. There's another individual, Adrienne. She's a YouTuber and she's out in Denver, and she's another person that I interviewed that when you're doing content creation and everything, I feel like a lot of what's said is you want to get to the point where you're self-sustaining and all that kind of stuff. But to hear it from your perspective makes complete sense. And the fact that you can actually relate to other people that have those same restrictions of say like, hey, I need to do my job. Also may have a family and all those other things where you're doing it yourself. So therefore you can lead by example. Right. So I think that's really cool. Start to wrap this up. 2 questions I ask at the end of each interview is, first one is, why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because I believe that the transformation that happened in my own life was so all-encompassing for the better that I had to help other people do the exact same thing. It didn't just change me physically. It transformed my entire life, my confidence in myself, the way I carried myself, and then it gave me a direction in my life that has literally allowed me to find my purpose. And so that is why I do it.
And then I kind of been switching between my last question. And for you, I want to ask, personally in the last year, what was the best investment you've made? And it could be for your business, for you personally. What have you done in the last year that's been like the most return on that investment?
In the last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best investment was deciding not to limit myself to just the Lion Shred and creating Lion Shred 2.0. And the reason is because that took a heck of a lot of time. Like my parents were getting worried about me because like this was over like my winter break and I was spending like 10 plus hours a day staying up till like 4 or 5 a.m. just working on this because I cared so much about it and making it perfect. And creating like that single creation is like my single proudest creation of anything that has come from my own brain and thoughts and everything, because it isn't just a fully customizable program. It's also like a full like ebook style guide that contains like the last 5 years of my fitness journey and condensed into like advice form and facts form, whatever you call it. And that has opened me up to a whole new world of possibilities, because now I have the Lion Shred, I have Lion Shred 2.0. Because of realizing that worked, I created the Lion Shred Women's Specialization Program so I can tailor it even more toward women. And now I have Lion Shred 3.0 in the works, which will be a 2-tiered system of physique and strength. So it's just like, that was like the turning point to make me widen my horizons even more. And so I'm expanding this even more. The shirt I'm wearing is for my clothing brand, which is going to be called Lion Aesthetics. It hasn't launched yet. But again, it's like all of this kind of has that snowball effect that started with 2.0.
That's awesome, man. There's a couple of people that I've asked that question to that some have been personal, like spending time with family. Others have been certain products that they made. One of them most recently was the guy spent the time to actually revamp and do the things that he needed to reinvest in his website. So similar to what you're talking about, it was like every dollar that he was getting was going back into that thing, where I love that. And I think personally on my own account, doing things with my own products in their video editing products, but actually taking the time to say no to things to then develop the stuff that I know can help me ease the challenges of like, if somebody asks for video editing help, I could be like, well, here's this whole preset pack that I made, and then boom, there's that. But because you spent all of the time to work on it in the first place, which I'm assuming that's what 2.0 and everything else. I mean, you even pointed it out. There's like one specifically for women now.
Yeah.
Speaking of, where can people find you?
They can find me on all forms of social media with the name Patrick Lyons. So Instagram at Patrick Lyons, YouTube. There's no @ sign, but it's Patrick Lyons.
Can you spell your last name for?
Yes, Lyons. I always say like the animal, but with a Y instead of an I.
Yeah. And then what's your little saying?
The heart of a lion.
I love that. All right. So until next episode, I hope everybody got value out of this podcast. I know I did. It's awesome to hear your story, man, especially like reading through and seeing a lot of your content and getting to spend some personal time with you. Just like, it's really cool. And if you guys did get value out of this podcast, you could share it out with a friend on Twitter, on Instagram, on all the different things. Until next time, I hope you're out there living a life of abundance. I'll see you guys on the next episode.